You've seen Return to Ravnica. You've seen Gatecrash. But the dragon Niv-Mizzet isn't done with you yet. From Azorius to Rakdos and from Boros to Simic, the 10 guilds of Ravnica have fought and schemed their way towards power. Welcome to Seattle. Welcome to Wizards of the Coast. Welcome inside R&D Dragon's Maze.
So when the curtain opens on Dragon's Maze, the Dragon Guildmaster of the Izzet League has invited all 10 guilds for mysterious purpose to this race. He has identified, through the help of his Izzet Guild, this implicit maze, and other guilds are calling it the Dragon's Maze, this route through the 10th district of Ravnica that connects the 10 different guild gates, each guild's ancient, established gateway, and connects all these guild gates in some sort of maze that, if you find the right route, you will gain some sort of immense power. All the guilds are interested in that power. All the guilds have to accept the dragon's invitation, and they've all chosen a single champion to represent them in this maze. Each one is going to be fighting with the other guilds to make sure that their champion ends the maze first, gains the power behind it, and seizes control of Ravnica.
I did the world building on Selesnya and came up with Trostani and a bunch of the other creatures that were going on there. And then later on, as Dragon's Maze evolved, Doug started writing The Secretist and wanted to use Amara Tandris as a character in his story. So we had to scramble to find a way to get her in the set.
In the novella, The Secretist, by my colleague Doug Beyer, Jace takes advantage of his friendship with Amara to say, I need to protect her, I need to watch out for her, and I need to make sure that she is chosen as the Maze Runner for the Selesnya, because that's the only way I'm going to achieve my aims. So that's a weird way in which a character from another piece of media, from Magic's past, and the Agents of Artifice novel was a few years ago now, sort of worked her way into cards through the back door in a way.
So I think when you're making the champions, that you want them to do something for the deck, and there's a couple different ways to do that. Amara is an example of defend what you're doing. Like, once I get my champion out, you can't mess with me, and I can do my thing. And I think the Selesnya, it just wants to do its thing.
So Xava is a good example of something that design likes to do a lot in the third sets, which is create lords for mechanics. We weren't able to do it for every mechanic in Dragon's Maze, but Unleash kind of was a really obvious target for that. So Xava was our attempt to make an Unleash lord.
We use haste in design and development to provide a little bit of tempo change and a little bit of excitement into the game. If you're used to the cards coming down and you're, say, a blue-white control player, you're like, great, card showed up, great, dealt with it, new guy showed up, dealt with it, and well, haste throws a little monkey wrench in your plans. So it gives the game a little bit more excitement, gives the attacking player something to have a little bit of fun with.
I'm particularly fond of the Azorius Senate's Maze Runner, Lavinia of the 10th. I wrote the material for the Azorius and for the Simic as well. Before I knew anything about the upcoming movie, I took inspiration from Les Miserables. Lavinia is supposed to be the sort of Azorius version of Javert. And I love that idea. I love the notion of someone who's so obsessed with justice that they will do anything in its pursuit, especially someone who doesn't fail in that endeavor, right? Unlike Javert, Lavinia never gets confused. She is pursuant to the end.
Lavinia of the 10th used to be a vastly more annoying card because it used to detain everything your opponents control. And when testing multiplayer, this was just about the most horrible, awful commander that anyone could play against. It just locked the entire game forever. You could just bounce it back and forth, sack it, recast it. It was terrible. We modified its effect so it still does a very Azorius thing, but the game actually continues.
Malik of the Izzet League is a being specifically created to run the maze. Not just to run mazes, but to run the implicit maze in particular. Poor, poor Malik. The reason why I say that is because Malik has a bit of a rival in the form of the Planeswalker Ral Zarek, who would really rather be the Maze Runner himself. So it's not exactly a fair fight. Malik knows how to run mazes, not really how to fight Planeswalkers. So we'll see exactly how things go for Melek.
So when we make Izzet cards, we purposely make them crazier than the other guilds. Melek has 3 things going on. The top card's revealed. You can play it if it's an instant or sorcery. Blue and red both copy spells, so when you do this, you get 2 copies. Just combustible, just quite a combination. And we wouldn't do that with most other guilds.
Melek Izzet Paragon allows you to play with the top card of your library revealed. This is very similar to an old card, Oracle of Moldiah, lets you also play with your top card revealed. Oracle lets you play extra lands. Well, this one instead lets you play instances and sorceries. Much more exciting.
Mirko Vosk is a vampire who has the ability to drain thoughts out of other people's minds. This is a very useful ability for the Dimir. They traffic in secrets. Their guildmaster Lazov wants nothing more than to know the route of the maze and also to thwart all the other guilds in their knowledge of the maze. So Mirko's abilities come in handy here.
So Mirko mills your opponent. He takes the top cards of your library until you hit 4 lands. We used to call this mechanic grind. You would take cards off the top of your library until you hit a land. He does that 4 times. Blue-black used to have that as a mechanic. Still has a theme of depleting your opponent's library. This guy gets it done in a hurry.
Sometimes design creates pretty powerful cards just to capture some idea that they have, and we're surprised to see them make it all the way through development because it turns out we want really ridiculous rares sometimes.
Rurik Thar is an ogre, and he or they kind of defy pronoun usage. Rurik is actually the name of one of the heads, and Thar is the name of the other head. They do not consider themselves to be the same ogre.
He always had the must attack line, and he would not allow players to cast non-creature spells. We wanted the Gruul Maze Runner to come down and just force everybody into creature combat. And what we ended up doing is we wanted some people to be able to answer him without playing any creatures. So we settled on the idea of giving him the ability of just damaging you if you cast a non-creature spell. And what ended up happening was we wanted the 6 damage there because it matched up with his power. Usually what happens in design is we want the damages and numbers to line up. So for example, if we had given him deal you 5 damage, it would have felt a little weird that a creature with 6 power is dealing 5 damage. Whereas if it's 6 and 6, it actually feels like Rurik Thar is punishing you for playing that non-creature spell.
If you go all the way back to Guild Pact introduced both the Izzet and the Gruul. And what we realized at the time was it was a neat dichotomy that they both were red, but one was blue and one was green. And the blue one loves spells. The green one loves creatures. And what grew out of that was not only does the Izzet love spells, it's not as crazy about creatures. Not only does the Gruul love creatures, it's not as crazy about spells. And this card really is just showing up Gruul like, love creatures, hate spells.
Rurik Thar is a beat stick. The end.
Tajik is the maze runner for the Boros, and he is the expression of Boros duty. He hears the orders from on high, and he does his duty every time. He has heard that Aurelia, his guildmaster, has interest in this maze thing and wants the Boros to win, just like they love victory. They love glory in battle. And to him, the maze is just another battle to win.
So Tajik, we wanted a creature that would give you battalion, and we were finding is you have to overextend, people say. You need to put 3 creatures on the board before you can get your battalion. And we thought, what would be the perfect mechanic so you wouldn't feel like you've overextended into something that's going to kill your creatures? Indestructible. So that's why we wanted an indestructible ability on him, and then a big bonus, +5/+5, when you did pull it off.
The +5/+5 bonus on Tajik's battalion ability came from a desire to have a creature that you always want to attack with that always gets a actual big sizable bonus on him. Doesn't give a bonus to your team, doesn't give a marginal, like small upside bonus. He's just blammo, I'm the guy, get in with me. But there's really not a lot of iterative development about, well, is +4/+4 the right bonus? Is +5/+5 the right bonus? Is +6/+6? Once you're in the range of a 7/7, it's, all pretty much the same.
I made the first Teysa in Guild Pact, which turned out to be a pretty popular legendary card out of that block. So when I heard from Brady that she was still alive in the continuity, I was all over trying to get her to come back again.
The interesting thing about Teysa Karlov is that she's been around for a long time. She was one of the main protagonists in the Guild Pact novel written by Corey Herndon. So we hope that players will be happy to see a returning character. Teysa uses Orzhov magic to keep just enough of her youth to continue to work for the Ghost Council.
So one of the things that happens when you've been designing as long as I have is that you just get pet spells. And so during Urza's Legacy, I designed a card called No Mercy. And the idea was it was very black. It's like, touch me and die. And I got a soft spot in my heart for it. So whenever people bring up, no mercy-ish things, I'm always, very favorable toward it. So when we were making the champion, they said, what about, the Orzhov champion has no mercy? I'm like, awesome.
So Teysa has vigilance and protection from creatures, which sets her up really nicely to sort of be this really big presence on the board. So when Teysa's coming in, you can be attacking and creatures can't block her. She has protection from creatures, and she'll always be doing that 4 damage there. So what ended up happening with Teysa is we just really wanted a large board presence creature, and the vigilance and the protection from creatures really sets that up.
So one of the things that players always look forward to is we always introduce a new mechanic, and then oftentimes we're like, and everything has this mechanic. And so when we made it, we knew that we could do, like, everybody has Scavenge. It's the obvious card to do. We knew players would want it, but we're like, well, let's hold back a little bit. We're not, in the original Ravnica, we had to give you everything up front. But this time, we got to save some stuff for the end, and this felt like something you saved.
The Simic Combine make the interesting choice of sending Vorel Maga to run the maze. He's the leader of the Hullclade. The Hullclade specializes in defensive projects, which sounds wrong for a maze runner. But Vorel is particularly ambitious. He started life as a human, and when the merfolk emerged from Ravnica's depths, Vorel says, I think I could benefit from some of that, and splices his own essence with that of a merfolk and becomes a sort of human-merfolk hybrid in the process. Vorel is a fierce believer, maybe even a zealot, in Simic principles, and he intends to put them to a test in his running of the maze.
Mark Rosewater loves doubling things more than any man on Earth. Every set he designs has multiple ways to double counters or tokens or power or life totals or whatever like that. He just, why add when you can multiply? But so he made this card in design. He fought for it relentlessly throughout all of development. So all you Rosewater Doubling Season fans, here's another bullet for your gun.
As the creator of Doubling Season, and I would say about 75% of all the doubling cards in Magic, I totally endorse this card.
Ral Zarek is another interesting case of a character coming onto cards from an unlikely source. Years ago, we introduced 2 new Planeswalker characters in one edition of Duels of the Planeswalkers, the merfolk Kiora Atua and the human Izzet Guildmage, Ral Zarek. We knew that we were going to make use of Ral. We didn't know when at the time, and when we started formulating the story for Return to Ravnica, we said, what if Niv-Mizzet has a sort of ace up his sleeve in the form of an actual Planeswalker? And that's when Ral's characters started to come together as someone who would like to serve even more of a pivotal role than he already does. So his smirk is quite studied.
I'm glad we finally get to make a card for Ral Zarek. He showed up in Duels of the Planeswalkers a couple years ago. And I must say his ultimate, I think, may supplant Karn Liberated as my favorite Planeswalker ultimate we've made.
Ral Zarek was a little tricky to make. We really wanted him to embody both the chaos and the lightning aspect that red and blue bring to the table. So finding abilities that capture that in a perfect way was, well, we went through a lot of iterations. And I feel like we really hit it perfect when we ended up with the capstone being flip 5 coins for his ultimate. You'll get some number of extra turns out of it. Usually 2 or 3, but wow, take 4 or 5 extra turns, there's no stopping you.
Ral doesn't know what the solving of this implicit maze might yield, nor is Niv-Mizzet. Niv-Mizzet has some vague ideas, but no one is sure what exactly the completion of the maze will do. And so that's where the curtain opens with Dragon's Maze.